Hello substreamers and welcome back to Substream News. Now usually I would use this little intro to ask you to subscribe, but today I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to ask you to stick with me till the end, and if you like the video then you should subscribe. Of course, that's a logical way to subscribe to channels. Well, today we've got 6 videos for you and I want to get straight into it, so let's go. We're starting in Japan this week, where it's no big secret that an aging population and a lack of people having babies is causing some pretty big social issues. Now, the stats actually say that the number of babies born was down 5.1% last year, while the population of people over 80 was over 10% for the first time, and the population of people over 65 is 30% of the population. Japan is the oldest country in the world in terms of population. So as a byproduct of a country with a rising age population and fewer babies being born, the number of adult diapers actually overtook the number of baby diapers being sold back in 2011. So that's 13 years ago. Now, something else is happening. OG Nepia, one of the biggest diaper manufacturers in Japan, said that the number of sales has dropped in the last 20 or so years from 700 million per year to 400 million per year. Now, they've decided to stop making baby nappies, baby diapers, and move the production of their baby diaper facilities over to Malaysia and Indonesia, where the populations are rising, and instead focus just on adult diapers in Japan because of this issue of people getting older. Now, I'm serious when I say this is a huge societal issue in Japan, and people are worried it's leaving whole towns and villages abandoned because there just aren't young people to live in them. And actually, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said this last year: "Japan is standing on the verge of whether we can continue to function as a society." He said it's now or never and they have to deal with it. They're trying different incentives, but so far, it's not working. Anyway, let's move on to the next story. Okay, right. The next story is a big one, and if you love AI and tech and all that kind of jazz like I do, this one was just amazing. So, Neuralink, which is a brain chip research company owned by Elon Musk, has successfully implanted a brain chip on a guy. His name is Noland Arbor, and 8 years ago he had a diving accident and he dislocated 2 vertebrae in his cervical spinal cord that left him completely paralyzed from the shoulders down. So he's a paraplegic man, and he really wanted this brain chip because it allowed him to play his favorite video game all night just using the Force. At least that's how he describes it. He says that having this Neuralink brain chip implant and being able to control a computer with it makes him feel like some kind of Jedi. How great's that? So Noland recently posted about an hour-long video on X, Twitter, if you're in the know, and he basically explained everything about it. And one of the most interesting parts was how he came to be the first Neuralink patient. How did that happen? Well, it's a good story. He was just at home and, he'd kind of given up on ever playing video games again and didn't think there was much hope for him. But his friend was a biology major who worked in a neuroscience lab, and he knew about Neuralink. And that it just got FDA approval in the US. And he called up Noland and told him all about this. And Noland applied. And I bet he's glad he did, because he won. I guess it feels like a victory, but he was selected. And for me, this story, brain chips for paraplegic people to let them access computers. Wow, that is futurism right there. And this opens up a whole world of possibility, and I'm actually really excited now for what Neuralink could do for the future. Believe what you like about Elon Musk. He's doing some pretty innovative things with his companies. And moving on. Now, serious. People say when they die, please delete their internet browsing history. And they mean it as a joke, but maybe they don't. You never really know, do you? And this latest story turns that joke into a bit of a reality because in recently unsealed court documents in the US, Google was forced by the feds, the police, I suppose, to hand over the names, addresses, telephone numbers, and user activity of YouTube accounts and IP addresses. Okay, now that's a kind of normal data request, right? If you think there's online criminal activity, the authorities can request data of users. That's normal. The weird part is this was a bit of a honeypot, or what they call a dragnet, but basically a honeypot. They wanted the data of people who watched specific videos. And these were videos about drones, nothing too bizarre. But the federal investigators had actually used undercover identities to send the links to these specific YouTube videos to an individual they were trying to capture. So they send the link, he watches the video, and then they go to YouTube and say, hey, we want the data on everyone who watched this video. Honeypot, dragnet, that's a honeypot. Okay, so we do actually have some data about the guy who they were trying to catch, and his username was Elon Musk WHM. I'm not sure what that stands for, and he was a kind of illegal Bitcoin trader doing money laundering activities. So, you know, he was a bit of a criminal, and yeah, it's a bit of a bizarre one, this, and it's quite scary because while the data requests are normal, this is an abuse of the relationship between the authorities and YouTube. That's how I perceive it. But it's also a bit unconstitutional. And of course, I'm not American, but my American viewers may be thinking, isn't this a violation of my First and Fourth Amendment rights? And you would be correct. And that is why we don't know whether Google/YouTube did share the information. They were taken to court, and they've been taken to court many times over data requests. Google is actually on your side and will protect your data as much as they can. And they've been to the Supreme Court many times doing exactly that. They don't want to give away your data because it loses trust with you. And they would rather suffer the consequences in court than do that. Well, the authorities said this, the federal investigators said this to justify this. They said the information or data would be relevant and material to an ongoing criminal investigation, including by providing identification information about the perpetrators. Google responded, with all law enforcement demands, we have a rigorous process designed to protect the privacy and constitutional rights of our users while supporting the important work of law enforcement. We examine each demand for legal validity, consistent with developing case law, and we routinely push back against overbroad or otherwise inappropriate demands for data, including objecting to some demands entirely. So, before you think Google's a bad guy in this story, they're actually fighting for you. And I'll tell you what, they've earned some credit. The more I read into this story, the more I was impressed with Google. And yeah, they may control so much of our data, but at least they're willing to fight for it. And sticking on the theme of Google, I have another Google story here. Some of you, very few of you, but some of you may have noticed something different on your Google homepage. If anyone still uses that, does anyone watching, do you actually go to google.com or whatever your local domain thing is? Because I think most of us, don't we just use the search bar? I suppose for Chrome users, we just use the search bar, right? The address bar. Well, if you do go to google.com, you may have noticed something different because you may be a non-test participant in the recent rollout of their SGE AI data searching feature. Oh my gosh. Right. Here's what that means. AI has been added to the search functionality, and that search generative experience, SGE, will appear under the Google bar. So we all know that classic empty box. And then just below that, another box, and it's going to be a colorful box to really stand out. A huge change for Google, this. Well, how will it work? It's going to be a bit different from Google. So Google generally kind of gives you a list of links to send you where it thinks you want to go. But with the new AI search tool, it's going to be more like a chat bot that summarizes the information from the Google search while giving you some links, but opening some kind of dialogue. So it's going to help get you towards the information that you want. So if you've used ChatGPT, I think it will feel like ChatGPT mixed with Google in terms of having that conversation, but mixed in with all of Google's indexing data, which is huge because that's something that ChatGPT doesn't do very well. Okay, the next story is out of Florida, USA, and I'm gonna make this one as quick as I can and just give you a fact file over what's happened. Florida has banned social media for minors under 14. The law takes effect on January 1st, 2025. Social media companies must close accounts they believe to be used by minors under 14. They must cancel accounts at the request of parents or minors. All information from the accounts must be deleted. 14 and 15-year-olds will need parental consent to open an account, and if the parents don't consent, those accounts can be deleted. Now, this is part of Governor Ron DeSantis' campaign, and he says, being buried in those devices all day is not the best way to grow up. It's not the best way to get a good education. I'm so sorry for that accent. But he was joined by Florida House Speaker Paul Renner, who said, a child in their brain development doesn't have the ability to know that they're being sucked into these addictive technologies and to see the harm and step away from it. Again, I don't know where that voice came from. I'm sorry, American viewers, if I've offended you with my impression, but Florida expects to be sued over this, and they said, we're going to fight the whole way. That is stubborn. So if you're a teenager from Florida using social media, I'm sorry, but get ready to say goodbye to TikTok and doom scrolling. On to our final story. Just a quick recap before I give you the final story. We've had Japanese diaper sales, an all-night Neuralink gaming sesh. By the way, he chose to play Civilization. Sneaky law enforcement demands of YouTube data. We've had Google introducing AI search, and Florida banning social media for children under 14. Okay, now what's our final story? Well, our final story asks the question, where in the world do people live the happiest and unhappiest lives? Start thinking now for your top 3 and bottom 3, and I will give them to you. These answers, or this comes from the World Happiness Report, and they don't actually use or share the quantifiable data. So people looking into it have said it's somewhat subjective. We don't know how big the research samples are. We don't know what they were asked. We actually don't know a lot, really. We don't know a lot about this. But while some people call this pure fabrication, they're undisclosed supporting factors. I am going to give you the answers, so I hope you've thought of some. In reverse order, the 3 happiest countries in the world. Number 3, Iceland. Number 2, Denmark. And number 1, Finland. Okay. Now, unfortunately, at the other end of the scale, I'm sorry in advance to the 3 most unhappy places in the world. We have, in third place, Lesotho. I think I said that right. Lesotho. Lebanon in second place, and number 1, Afghanistan. So wherever in the world you are watching from, I just want to say thank you very much. To all the sub-streamers out there, we are loving this, and we're so glad that you're here at an early stage in our journey. Remember to tell your friends, share the video, and help us grow. And if you could go down and subscribe if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it. I'm Joseph. This is Substream News, and I will see you next time.